a shadow in the night, a whisper in the dark, a killer who played games with the police and won. He called himself the Zodiac. For years, he stalked Northern California, hunting young couples, taunting investigators, and leaving behind a trail of blood and unsolved ciphers. His identity? Unknown. His body count? Possibly dozens. And his final message? Still a mystery. This is the story of America's most infamous serial killer who vanished without a trace. But first, let's go back to where it all began. It was December 20th, 1968, just 5 days before Christmas. The small town of Vallejo, California, was winding down for the night. Most families were home, wrapping presents, decorating trees, completely unaware that just outside town on a quiet stretch of road, something unspeakable was about to happen. 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and 17-year-old David Faraday were high school sweethearts. That night, they drove to Lake Herman Road, a popular lover's lane, to spend some time alone. It was supposed to be an innocent date, just two teenagers enjoying each other's company. But someone else was watching them. At approximately 11:15 p.m., another car pulled up behind them. The driver, a man whose face we may never know, stepped out. He walked toward David and Betty Lou's car. And then, gunfire. David was shot once in the head at point-blank range. Betty Lou, struck 5 times as she tried to flee. Their bodies were discovered just minutes later by a passing motorist. The scene was horrific. Blood splattered across the seats. Shell casings scattered on the ground. And the killer? Gone without a trace. Police had nothing. No motive. No description. Just 2 dead teenagers and a community left in shock. The case went cold until 6 months later when the killer struck again. And this time, he left a message. Independence Day, 1969. Another lover's lane. Another young couple, 22-year-old Darlene Farron and 19-year-old Mike Majo, parked near Blue Rock Springs Golf Course. They had no idea they were being hunted. The gunman fired through the passenger side window. Darlene was hit 4 times, killed instantly. Mike, despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest, somehow survived. As he lay bleeding, he heard the killer walk around the car and then stop. Before fleeing, the attacker used a knife to carve 3 words into the car door. I am the Zodiac. This was no random act of violence. This was the beginning of a game where the killer made the rules. And the police were already losing. 3 days after the Blue Rock Springs attack, the killer made his next move. Not with a gun, but with a pen. On July 31st, 1969, 3 Bay Area newspapers received identical letters. Each began with the same bone-chilling declaration. I'm the murderer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas and the girl on the 4th of July. No remorse, no fear, just pride, like he was submitting a resume for the job of America's most terrifying killer. But the real horror was buried deeper, because Zodiac didn't just confess, he encrypted his crimes. A cipher, a code, a puzzle wrapped in bloodstained paper. The Zodiac dared authorities to solve it, boasting, "If you can't crack this, I'll kill again." The clock was ticking. Then, a breakthrough. Just days later, a schoolteacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty cracked part of the code. And what it revealed was even more disturbing than police feared. This wasn't just a killer. This was a psychopath who treated murder like a game. And he was winning. But Zodiac wasn't done playing. That fall, he mailed a gruesome trophy to the San Francisco Chronicle, a swatch of Paul Stein's bloodied taxi driver shirt. And with it, a threat that would haunt every parent in California. Panic erupted. Police doubled patrols. Parents kept kids home. And Zodiac? He watched it all unfold, his power growing with every headline. Because that's what he really wanted, not just to kill, but to terrorize. September 27th, 1969. A perfect Saturday. The kind of day that makes you believe in happy endings. Brian Hartnell, 22 years old, a law student with a quick smile, had driven his girlfriend, Cecilia Shepard, to this quiet spot by the lake. She was 20, studying microbiology, her whole future ahead of her. They spread out their picnic, talked about their plans, laughed about nothing in particular. Just 2 young people in love. unaware that their story was about to be rewritten in blood. They saw him before they heard him. A man, average height, short dark hair, glasses, dressed all in black, but not like a criminal, like a park ranger or a priest. He walked toward them with eerie calm, as if he had every right to be there. Brian would later tell police that the man didn't seem dangerous at first, just odd, until he lifted his hand, and they saw the gun. He then said, "I'm an escaped convict from Deer Lodge, Montana. I need your car and your money. Don't try anything stupid, and you'll be okay." This wasn't a robbery. This was a performance, and the Zodiac had come to rehearse. 6 times he stabbed Brian. 10 times he stabbed Cecilia. The lake turned red around her. Brian, bleeding out, watched as the killer knelt beside him, expected the final blow. But the Zodiac just whispered, "Tell the police it was the Zodiac, and tell them I enjoyed it." Cecilia Shepard died 3 days later. Brian survived, miraculously, but carried the scars, both physical and mental, for the rest of his life. And the Zodiac? He vanished. Again. But this time, he'd changed the game. No more quick shootings from the shadows. This was intimate, personal. He wanted his victims to see him, to remember him, to know that death wasn't just coming, it was standing right in front of them, breathing through black cloth. And he wasn't done yet. His next victim was Paul Stine. Paul Stine knew these streets like the lines on his own palms. 29 years old, a part-time student at San Francisco State, driving a cab to pay his way through school. He was the kind of man who remembered regulars' names, who joked with late-night passengers about the Giants' losing streak. Tonight was like any other, the quiet lull between dinner rushes and bar closings, the city exhaling around him, until the man in the glasses got in his cab. Average height, brown hair, late 30s, thick-rimmed glasses that caught the streetlights as they passed. He gave an address on Maple Street in a voice so ordinary it barely registered, the kind of bland, forgettable tone you'd hear from any accountant or high school teacher. Paul nodded, flipped the meter, and pulled away from the curb. Neither man could have known this would be the last fare Paul Stine ever took. Somewhere between Cherry Street and Maple, the ordinary man stopped being ordinary. Maybe Paul saw the gun first in the rear view. Maybe he felt the cold press of metal against the back of his skull before he saw it. But when the Zodiac spoke again, the banality was gone. "Your money. All of it. Not a demand. A statement." The bullet entered just behind Paul's right ear, tore through his brain, and lodged in the left temple. Death was instantaneous. The Zodiac knew this. He'd done his research. What happened next wasn't panic. It was ritual. He took the wallet, the keys, a scrap of Paul's shirt, sliced neatly with a knife. Then he did something extraordinary. He stepped out into the street, closed the door gently behind him, and stood for a full 10 seconds under a street lamp, waiting, watching, wanting to be seen. For the first time in his bloody career, the Zodiac had made a mistake. Those boys would give police a description so precise it still gives investigators chills. 5 feet 8 inches, 180 pounds, brown hair, glasses, a walk like a man who owned every sidewalk he touched. Roadblocks went up within minutes. Patrol cars flooded Presidio Heights. They had him. They had to. But the Zodiac wasn't in those gloves anymore. He was already home, already writing his next letter, already laughing at how close they'd come. "Here is a piece of the shirt I was wearing when I stabbed them. That's the one you let get away." Not an admission. A victory lap. After October 11th, 1969, the killing stopped. The letters continued. More ciphers, more taunts, but the gun stayed silent. Some say he died. Others believe he was arrested for some lesser crime, his true identity buried in paperwork. But the darkest possibility? He simply got bored. The game had been won. The legend secured. And Paul Stine's murder proved something terrible, that the Zodiac could kill in broad daylight in the heart of the city with witnesses watching and still walk away. After the murder of Paul Stine, something changed. The killing stopped, but the letters? They kept coming. More ciphers, more taunts, more promises of violence that never materialized. The Zodiac had vanished, but not before leaving behind a puzzle so complex it would take half a century to solve. For 51 years, this code defied every cryptographer, FBI agent, and amateur sleuth who dared to crack it. The Zodiac's arrogance was etched into every symbol. You'll never catch me. And even if you do, you'll never understand me. December 2020. A team of amateur codebreakers, a software developer, a mathematician, and a historian, finally shattered the 340 cipher. And what they found wasn't a confession, wasn't a name. It was something far more chilling. I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise faster. Not a boast, a belief. The Zodiac wasn't just a killer. He was a man convinced of his own righteousness, a murderer who saw himself as something closer to a god. Today, the Zodiac is more myth than man, a boogeyman, a cautionary tale. His ciphers are classroom exercises. His crimes are midnight Wikipedia rabbit holes. But for the families of his victims, he's not a legend. He's a wound that never heals. What are your opinions about this killer? Leave your comment down below. Also, like, share, and subscribe for more content.